Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Unbelievable Nerds podcast with the lovely Mulch returning. Welcome
I'm
back.
back. Yeah, I'm back from the first one, which was
Yep.
The Last of Us.
Yep.
The Last of Us was the first one.
Yep.
So yeah. So I'm back. I'm back on the channel. It's been a few weeks. So yeah, good to be here again. How are you doing, Bragster?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a sunny day today. Anyone who has watched the streams pod, it was absolutely chucking it down. And that was only a couple of days ago in terms of recording wise. So it's changed. It's good.
It is. It's actually nice and sunny for once, which is lovely.
Nice. Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, we are actually talking about something dying on this lovely day. It was announced. It was probably a few weeks back, so we're probably late to the conversation. But we thought it was useful to get our thoughts on it and actually speak about it on the channel. You know, us talking about games and stuff. How can you talk about games without the death of E3?
Yeah.
No, this has been coming for a few years now because it's been postponed for the last couple now have been postponed.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, it has been coming. Anyone who follows it knows that it was just rumored for a bit, but yeah, it has been coming, and I think this year it sort of being cancelled, and then obviously it all coming out. It's like, well, yeah, but yeah, I think anyone who follows it will have known it was coming.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where I actually think it was. If I will go back to the pandemic. I actually think it was the pandemic that kind of cost it because obviously E3 not existing really in the pandemic because the whole point of E3 for people who somehow don't know what E3 is, all the game companies come to one location and they all show off their new fancy games for the next year, and that's how they do it. And you know, often you'll get full trailers, sometimes you'll get gameplay, sometimes you'll just get a little snippet. And then the pandemic came along, obviously E3 wasn't happening. So game companies were like, okay, so how do we react to this? How do we announce our new titles? And started doing their own independent ones. You started to do CEA, Bethesda, 2K, for example, doing different events and big events of announcing their games.
Yep.
And I think it made companies realize there's a lot of scope in that.
Yeah.
And that, quite frankly, traveling and putting all this money into this one event rather than putting a bit of money, probably less money actually, into just having one studio with a presenter and a couple of extra people, so it's less people you have to pay.
Exactly.
Sat on a sofa speaking about these things. Then you get the big reveal trailer. Then you'll probably get one of the creators of the games to come in and speak about it for 5-10 minutes. Again, less money. And I think companies realize this and have gone, let's run with it. This is the new thing now.
Yeah, why not? At the end of the day, as you said, E3 is all the games for the year. They can literally, as a company, can then put out the next game and show the trailer, all that sort of stuff by themselves. Then, later in the year, they can then do another potential sneak peek into the next one, and it's just a lot easier for companies to do it that way. Money-wise, just ease of it. You don't have to go and travel, as you said. You know, you're gonna have to go and travel, and you're gonna have to pay the people to go there. You know, pay the people to stay there. You got food, you got all that sort of stuff. You know, you got so much stuff to really think about, and it's better this way in terms of for the company. It potentially is better for us as gamers because they can actually show off the game more. I think rather than just being like, oh, you've got this, you got that. Yeah, fair enough. You're showing it to everyone, and you know you're actually in a room with loads of people and all that sort of stuff. But as a gamer, they can actually show off the game more. I think personally, just because they can go in depth into certain things, which potentially they couldn't do if they were at E3 because they got a certain time slot.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of stuff. You know, they can have it as long as they want, as short as they want, and it's better for us to see the full scale of games. But on the other hand, you know, it is a bit gutting because at the end of the day, one day I might have wanted to go. Like, I personally haven't been, but it looks so cool to go. Like, I would have enjoyed going there.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit gutting. You know, potentially one day I would have liked to have gone, but the other way is they've gone. Yeah, is it worth it? Probably not. So, you know, all these big gaming companies, you know, they're going to try and save as much money as possible. And as you said, with COVID and stuff, that'll have, you know, with the pandemic, you can bleep out the C word if you want, Morris. During the pandemic, obviously it won't have been able to go ahead, and it'll have all been done online, and that's when they'll sat down and gone, wait a second, this is easier to do it ourselves. So yeah, I think that's what's done it. I think you're right. I think that is what's done it. But it's always gutting to see, you know, something like that go into it. No matter what you think, it is a little bit gutting to see it go.
Exactly. It's literally a festival for gamers, right? The most unlikely people to go to festivals in gaming. It's their festival. It's like this big moment where you get everyone together, and I think you get to meet your favorite voice actors. You get to meet your favorite, even like with how good the games are nowadays, especially with like the dark pictures stuff and stuff like that. The mocap actors, a lot of those will end up going. Keanu Reeves was like, has been before, back in the Cyberpunk days, right?
It's ridiculous.
It's all of that, like, which people looked forward to, and every year you used to have your average goers, and then you'd have people like us who would maybe go once in their lifetime just to say, do you know what, I've been, right? And it's a matter of like, that no longer happens. That festival will no longer happen where you get to meet all these amazing people. I think it's broken that connection, I think, a little bit. I think that's the one negative to this going. We've spoken to, you know, naturally there's a lot of positives. When we've on the company side of things, there are so many positives for the companies. And I think as fans, as you mentioned, like just the fact that, yes, they can have one event during the year, but what I love is if every company, multiple companies have actually started to do maybe 2 of these a year now, just to kind of break things up a little bit more.
Exactly,
but doing it once a year, think of all the gaming companies. I rattled off 3 off the top of my head a second ago without even hesitation. And that's without actually going into the ones that do other games that I love. You know, Activision is another one. Nintendo is the big one. It didn't even cross my mind. You know, you've got like Xbox, PlayStation, you know, the actual console people doing theirs. And rather than them all being at one event spread over 3, 4, 5 days or whatever it ended up being, because I know it changed every year pretty much. And the bigger it got, the more days got added. But like, you've got, rather than one weekend or 1 week a year, we're getting multiple of these. So as fans, it's great because every month it feels like it. I know it's probably not, but it feels like every month we're getting a new big company doing their big annual event. You know, where they're showing everything off, and you get a bunch of trailers all at the same time, and it's brilliant. It's great, and I love it. And you've got people doing reactions. I remember watching back in the pandemic days. I think it was MC Fixer. I think. If I'm getting the name of the creator right, I do apologize if I've got that wrong, because it's been a while actually since I watched him. But like, I remember watching him back in the pandemic days of watching his reactions to stuff, and I think even companies have realized that actually creators' reactions to these great franchises kind of being brought to life in front of them is brilliant, and they can't do that if they're at E3, whereas they can do that here, and it builds more publicity, more hype. But as I said, I think the one big problem is actually the creator connection. You know, because not only do the fans no longer get that connection with the
Yeah.
game as much because they're not seeing the people that created them. I can't remember the guy, and I'm wondering if your internet is good enough while I go on this rant to research the name of the person. The guy who does Silent Hill. I can't remember that one. Research him, the name of that one, because I don't want to get the name wrong. But basically, the guy who does that, whenever he turned up, it was like this big moment. And it was like, oh my God, he's here. Oh my God. Like, he did like Death Stranding as well. Stuff like that. Like, you know, an amazing creator of games would arrive at the event and would basically, it would create this big buzz and people would get to meet him. People would get photos of either, you know, even if you're not doing like, oh, I'm taking a selfie sort of thing, you know, with him, or, you know, let's get a picture together. Just the fact that you've seen them in the flesh and you've taken a picture of said person is quite cool. Like, it's always that cool moment of, I saw this person in the flesh and I've got this one photo proving that I did.
Exactly, yeah. It's, oh no, I'm not going to be able to say this guy's name.
Just say it. We're all for pronunciations. We understand that.
Keishiro Toyama.
Yeah, I think that's it. And he's brilliant though. Like, he creates these big worlds that people get really immersed into, and like, he's massive in the gaming world. And people would be like, whenever he turned up, it would be this big moment. And no one gets to now really see him in person. It doesn't really happen. And that's a shame. That's a massive shame. You know, for like, and for creators as well, because creators no longer really get to meet like these great people. And also, the thing that we're forgetting is, yes, you've got the creators meeting the game creators and the game creators meeting the fans. But the one other thing at E3 that's not spoken about enough is the fact that the fans get to meet the creators.
Yeah,
that's the thing for me. That it's then, you know, this like trifecta of people not being able to meet each other is exactly why E3 dying is a negative. You know, there are so many positives. Do not get me wrong. I am not ignoring the positives. But that's the one big negative, is you don't get that community feel that, quite frankly, the gaming community started to build up really well before the pandemic. It was this big, massive community feel.
Yeah. While you've been speaking, I've just been doing a little bit of looking up on the, you know, the history of it. 'Cause I'm not the biggest on the history, but 2017 was the first show open to the public.
Wow.
And it was cancelled in 2020. And so there's only been 4 E3s open to the public, and one of them was online. So there's only ever been 3 that have been public.
And how big it became in that time.
Well,
like, in terms of like people going and, you know, it being a big deal. You know, I've seen on Twitter a lot of people disappointed that, you know, E3's gone.
Well, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, I've just been looking at the history, stuff like, so in 2019, so that was June, so pandemic hit close to there. It was very close.
What, 2020?
I think it started 2019, right?
End of 2019 was when November 2019 was when it sort of started to hit. And then
it was February.
Because then it was 2020 where we went into lockdowns.
I thought I was sure it was February 2019 because I went on holiday, and when I came back, it were all kicking off. Yeah, so I think that's just after it was sort of like really beginning to, you know, obviously become bad. So that was the year Sony opted to not participate in E3. And they opted to go to other expos and do their own stuff.
Yeah.
So that's probably where the downfall started. But as you said, meeting the creators, stuff like that, it's a big thing, because I think people would still go and would still be happy. But I have just noticed right at the bottom there, 2023, cancelled due to the lack of interest and attendance of major publishers.
Yeah.
So the game creators have just gone, we're
Yeah.
not going
The
to do it
game,
anymore.
because
Which is crazy.
and it's
to
purely
think about.
because they realised we can do
Yeah.
it on our own now.
Yeah, it's bonkers. But you know, if they can do it on their own, do it on their own. You know, but you
Yeah.
never know. Like, there's still some video game expos out there.
Mm-hmm.
None as big as that.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. They are still out there, but there'll be none as big. And for something so big to just like basically just nothing, just go.
It's just a poof. It literally is like a poof gone, because
It's crazy.
we obviously the downfall started just before the pandemic. Then the pandemic, I think, sped things up. I think you would have seen a gradual decline, but it just really sped things up, and people realized, you know what, we can go the way of Sony did, sort of thing. Let's make our own. And it's like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens from here on out, because, you know, there are so many creators, like young teenage me watched so many creators because somehow I found so much time in the day to watch so many, and the amount of times you'd see, yeah, I'm going to E3 this year, or I'm going to E3 in this location, because I think there was multiple ones, or like whatever.
Yeah.
But it'd be like, yeah, I'm going here, like, come and meet me. And you now that can't happen. And you know, it is a big shame. But
but it is planned to take place in 2024, apparently. They are looking at finding a balance that works for the industry. So, is it going to happen? I guess that's the big question. Is it going to happen?
It's a massive question. Like, because I think as a fan of games, even if I was someone that went every year, I'd be hesitant. I would, like, for me to go, if, like, I don't have the money, I'm not even going to remotely put into the mindset that I have the money to go next year. You know, I probably will at some point in my life, you know, in the future, but I'm not at a point in my life where I'm able to go yet, you know. So it's like, but even if I had the money, I would need, I think, the companies to come out, like the Sonys, like the Bethesdas, the Nintendos, to clearly state, we are going to E3 this year, for me to go, I want to go.
Yeah, well,
because otherwise, even if it's to a reduced scale, I don't even care if it's like, if they usually have like a 3-hour conference for Sony, and all of a sudden it turns into a 1-hour conference. I wouldn't even care in that respect. Obviously, it'd be disappointing, but I think if they just kept it to, rather than the little teases, just only the big announcements sort of thing, like the gameplay and stuff, so you still get to try out the games and stuff like that at E3, I think then it could still be on a big scale. It would just might have to be reduced to maybe 2 days, where it's just fast-paced, like non-stop. And that would be great, but it would, for me to consider going, even if they did announce it's coming back next year, I need to know that the big companies are going. Otherwise, why?
Exactly. Yeah, you would need them big companies to basically back it, and just sit there and go, yeah, we're gonna do it. We are, but how are they gonna back it? How are they gonna back it? Because as we've mentioned a lot already, they can do it by themselves, and it's easier to do it by themselves. And they can go to and they can go to these smaller expos. You know, there's I mean, I can't name any off at the top of my head, but I do know that they are about, and I know that companies will find it cheaper and easier to go to them, and then do videos, do trailers, whatever they want by themselves on their own channels, and get a reaction, as you mentioned earlier, from creators and stuff who are going to watch that announcement and like live stream it on Twitch. They're going to put it on the YouTube. They're going to get way more exposure than going to these. It is, as mentioned with the whole thing, they're going to find a balance, and I think that's what it needs. I think they need to do it by themselves anyway, but I also think they need expos. So I think they need to do both. E3 needs to become, I don't know what it needs to become, but it needs to become something that companies don't have to basically fork out a load of money to go to, but actually have a good showing as well.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one because obviously it's such a big thing. I mean, the attendance is anywhere between 50 and 70,000 people. You know, it needs to be something that the companies can afford, I guess, even though they are big companies and they can do it. It's something that they need to be able to afford in a sense, and also then do their own stuff. It's better. It's not just better for them, it's better for the creators, it's better for the people like us who are like the supporters of the games. We get that chance, but also it's for the businesses themselves, it gets them even more promotion, and it's more likely to keep these things going and more likely to keep them up and let people continue to go to these sorts of things. As you said, it's like a festival, and I don't see why they can't do that in a sense, even if it just means getting a smaller venue potentially. It might be a weird one, but yeah, even a smaller venue, getting obviously there's a lot of companies now, a lot of games companies. I mean, the first ever one was literally Nintendo, Sega, and Sony. That's literally it. And then the latest ones are like there's about 15 to 20 different companies. It's just expanded, but it needs to now become something that these businesses and these games companies can sit there and go, yeah, it's worth it. It's also worth us doing his own. So it's just making a balance, and then it'd be pretty good it'd be good to have it back. Be able to have the chance of going as well. I mean, it'd be better for like, because as you mentioned, I can't afford to go, but it'd potentially make it a bit cheaper for people to go, and then you'd get even bigger crowds. And more people want to go, but then they'd have to increase the capacity, and then it's just it's a mind melt of businessness. But I think that's the way they need to go if possible. If not, then it's going to be difficult, I think, and these companies will just sit there and go, I'll just do it by myself. I'll go to these little ones every now and then and show my face basically, and just be like, "Oh, hi, I'm here," and then just go away. You know what I mean? So, but yeah.
I mean, you summed it up perfectly. For me, like the big thing, and I wonder whether you actually agree with me. If they don't, for me, if E3 is not back next year, it's gone. I think they've got 1 year to work this out. Well, less than a year now to work this out. They've basically got a few months to go. Right, this is how we're gonna appease the fans. This is how we're gonna appease the game creators, and this is how, as E3, we're gonna basically make a really good event for people to want to go to. They've got to come up with that plan, and it's got to return next year. Otherwise, for me, at that point, the game companies will be like, "No, you're done. You are done."
If there's a lack of interest 2 years in a row, it's just not gonna ever. If like Microsoft and all them sort of stuff, if they're just sat there going, "Nah, it's not worth us doing it," and they do it 2 years in a row. Nah, it's going to be gone. But they need to do it next year if they want to keep it going. And if that means just reducing the size of the venue, or making it a little bit smaller, and as you said, reducing the time slots, for example, and just 2 days, and all these different things. Even if it means doing it like that, if it keeps it going, why not? Otherwise it'll just disintegrate into nothing, and then it'll just be a thing of the past.
Yeah, literally it will be. And I think that's a nice way of actually sort of ending on is, the future of E3 in question, do put your thoughts down in the comment section down below, because I'm really interested. Like, have you been to E3?
As well,
Have you considered going to E3? And if it came back, you know, what do you think? Because I think there's so many questions. We've tried to tackle as many as possible, and quite frankly, I don't think we have the time to tackle every question because it's just such a big it's such a big thing that you just can't really put it, like, answer everything. So do put that down in the comment section down below. Make sure to like, share and subscribe, as we always say. And if you haven't checked out our sister channel, make sure to check out the Unbelievable Streams podcast, which will be down in the description down below. And we shall see all of you in the next podcast. Bye.